Our memories, they feel so solid, right? Like these perfect, high-definition recordings of our past. They're the story of who we are, locked away in our minds, just waiting for us to hit play. But what if I told you that memory is less like a videotape and more like a story that we kind of rewrite every single time we tell it? What if some of your most vivid memories never actually happened? Okay, let's just start with a quick test. Take a second. Think of that iconic, legendary scene between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. Exactly the one I'm talking about. What does Vader say? Go on, say it out loud. Got it? I'm willing to bet most of you are thinking the exact same thing. You're probably thinking this line right here. Luke, I am your father. I mean, it's one of the most quoted lines in all of movie history. It's on t-shirts, it's a punchline in sitcoms, it's everywhere. But here's the thing, it's completely wrong. That's right. The actual line which comes right after Luke says Vader killed his father is, "No, I am your father." It's a subtle difference, sure, but it's a huge one. And if you're a little surprised right now, you are definitely not alone. This brilliant little glitch in our collective memory, well, it opens the door to a much bigger and much stranger phenomenon. So that feeling you just had, that "wait, what? I was so sure" moment, it actually has a name. And it's our ticket into this bizarre world of shared false memories that literally millions of people experience together. It's called the Mandela effect, and the story behind the name is fascinating. A paranormal researcher named Fiona Broom was at a conference when she realized she and a whole bunch of other people vividly remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison back in the 1980s. They remembered news clips, everything. But of course, that didn't happen. He was released, became president of South Africa, and passed away in 2013. That shared, specific, wrong memory was so powerful, it gave this whole phenomenon its name. And it is not just Darth Vader or Nelson Mandela. Get ready for this. Do you remember the children's books as the Berenstain Bears with an E? Nope, it was always Berenstain with an A. What about the Fruit of the Loom logo? Are you picturing a cornucopia, that horn of plenty behind the fruit? It was never there. Did the Monopoly man, rich Uncle Pennybags, wear a monocle? He never did. And are you absolutely positive you remember a 90s movie called Shazam where the comedian Sinbad played a genie? Sorry to break it to you, it never existed. And this effect goes way beyond just pop culture. Take a look at the clock at the Bologna railway station in Italy. It was damaged in a terrible bombing back in 1980, but it was repaired pretty quickly. It wasn't until 1996 that they decided to stop it permanently at the time of the explosion as a memorial. But in a study from 2010, an incredible 92% of locals remembered the clock being stopped ever since the day of the bombing, for years. So what is going on here? Are we all just losing our minds? Are we in some alternate universe? Well, not exactly. It turns out our memories are surprisingly easy to hack. So let's dive into the science of how this actually happens. Our journey into the science really starts back in 1974 with a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus. She and her colleague John Palmer designed this elegantly simple experiment that would completely, and I mean completely, reshape how we understand the way memory works. Okay, so here's how it worked. Participants watched a bunch of short videos of car accidents. Pretty straightforward. Afterwards, they were asked this simple question about how fast were the cars going when they blank into each other. Now, the key, the absolute genius of the experiment, was that the verb in that blank space was changed for different groups of people. And the results? They were wild. When the verb was really gentle, like contacted, people estimated a pretty low speed. When it was more forceful, like hit, the estimate went up. But when the verb was smashed, well, participants estimated the cars were going significantly faster, even though every single person watched the exact same video. But Loftus didn't stop there. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. A week later, she brought a new group back and asked them a follow-up question. Did you see any broken glass? Now, this is crucial. There was zero broken glass in any of the videos. You can probably guess what happened. The people who had been asked the question with the word smashed were far more likely to say, yes, I saw broken glass. Think about that. The word didn't just change their perception of speed, it literally created a false memory. It planted an object into their minds that was never actually there. As Loftus and Palmer wrote in their original paper, the way you phrase a question can plant expectations and lead to a total misconstruction of our memory. It's powerful proof that our memory isn't a recording, it's a reconstruction, and it's totally vulnerable to suggestion. So we know our memories can be messed with, but why? Why are our brains built this way? Why aren't they more like computer hard drives, storing data perfectly? Let's unpack the psychology behind it all. Okay, so one of the main theories for this is called a fuzzy trace theory. And the idea is that our brain doesn't just store one kind of memory. Instead, it creates two parallel tracks at the same time. A verbatim trace, which holds all the literal nitty-gritty details, and a gist trace, which just captures the general meaning or the feeling of an event. Think of it like this. The verbatim trace is like a super high-resolution photograph. Every pixel is perfect. But the gist trace, it's more like a blurry sketch. You get the main idea, but all the fine details are missing. Now here's the problem. That perfect, high-res photo fades really, really quickly. So we're often left with just the gist, which lasts longer, but is way more open to errors and outside influence. And then there's this other cool thing our brains do called presupposition. This is where the language someone uses can plant an idea in your head without you even realizing it. For example, if I ask you, did you see a stop sign? Your brain searches its memory for any stop sign. But if I ask, did you see the stop sign? That tiny word the presupposes that a stop sign was definitely there. And just changing a to the makes people much more likely to falsely remember seeing one. Now, look, misremembering a movie quote or a logo is one thing. It's a fun party trick. But this research has some profound and really serious implications for life, from the courtroom all the way to the therapist's office. As the Harvard psychologist Richard McNally puts it, recollection is always a reconstruction. It's not a videotape. And that is an incredibly important thing to remember when we talk about eyewitness testimony in legal cases. A person can be 100% certain of what they saw and still be 100% wrong, and that can have absolutely devastating consequences. This all really blew up in the 1980s and 90s with something called the recovered memory controversy. Some therapists believed that trauma was often repressed, so they used these highly suggestive techniques, things like hypnosis, guided imagery, repeated and leading questions, to help patients recover memories of abuse. But critics, including Elizabeth Loftus, argued that these techniques weren't recovering memories at all. They were creating them from scratch. And this whole debate actually ended up in court. A landmark 1994 case, Ramona versus Isabella, saw therapists found negligent, legally at fault, for implanting false memories of abuse into their patient. That case was a huge moment, and it shed a really harsh light on the dangers of using therapeutic techniques that don't account for just how malleable our memories really are. But wait, is having an imperfect memory all bad? Well, interestingly, maybe not. That same gist trace that makes us vulnerable to false memories is also incredibly useful. It's what helps us see patterns, solve problems creatively, and make quick, smart decisions based on past experiences. You could almost say it's a feature, not just a bug. Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If our memories are constantly being reconstructed, if they can be shaped by a single word, if they're edited after the fact, what does that mean for the autobiography each of us carries around in our own head? How much of your own story is fact and how much of it is fiction?